Good afternoon and welcome to 7's National News at noon. Now, top stories this Monday, 471 days of hostage hell over. 3 Hamas captives home at last, our report from Tel Aviv. Also, Novak Djokovic's showdown with Channel 9. Oz Open interviews boycotted, a broadcaster apologising for insulting the Serbian superstar. We're live to Melbourne Park. Plus, Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese in a dead heat for preferred PM. New polling out today will have the latest analysis from our political editor, Mark Riley. And more time for TikTok. The app is back in the US after Donald Trump delayed a ban. Our panellists weigh in on the debrief.
This is 7's National News at noon with Natarsha Belling.
Good afternoon. Out of darkness and into light is how Benjamin Netanyahu today hailed the return of 3 Israeli hostages. The women back at home and back in the embrace of their families. And there was no hiding the emotion. Hamas handing the captives over to the Red Cross this morning in exchange for the release of 90 Palestinian prisoners. It is the first fragile hurdle to be cleared under the new ceasefire. Ben Downey is in Tel Aviv for us. And Ben, what an extraordinary moment we have all witnessed today.
They're home, Tash. The first 3 of the group of 33 hostages to be released under this deal, receiving a hero's welcome here at Sheba Hospital in Tel Aviv, cheered on by family members, friends, loved ones and regular Israeli citizens who came out to see the moment the girls touched down on home soil for the first time in 15 months. In the jubilant but chaotic scenes, those family members were able to see the girls' faces for the first time, hear their voices, tell one another they love them and touch them as well for the first time in such a long time. It's scenes that Israel has promised the families of all of the hostages that have been held in captivity, and it will need to repeat this scene dozens of times if Operation Wings of Freedom is to be a success.
Mothers and brothers and sisters and friends. And I have, those were very moving meetings. They were very moving discussions, obviously, after so many days. To see the release of some hostages is incredibly moving. And we hope they are able to recover, and our thoughts are with the remaining hostages.
In equally chaotic scenes, but those of a different mood, hours earlier in Gaza, when the girls were brought out, they were brought out by a guard of between 100 to 200 Hamas militants, a real show of force from the group inside central Gaza, with thousands of Palestinians around them celebrating the beginning of the ceasefire. This was Hamas showing the world that despite 50,000 Palestinians dying over the last year and 3 months, that the organisation, the militant group, was still in power, the organisation was intact, and they were still able to effect this hostage trade. That won't matter, though, that Benjamin Netanyahu's narrative is now in doubt. To the family members who've been reunited with their loved ones, like Emily Damari, have listened to their family friends we spoke to earlier today.
This moment is, I can't even describe it. It's just unbelievable. All the friends are here. It's been a really torturous 24 hours. She's home, she's inside, she's with her mum. Thank God. Thank you, God.
It's often said people here fear they might never see their friends' faces again, but not for the family of Emily Damari. They always held out hope this moment would arrive. Now it has.
Ben, thank you. There is high drama off the court at the Australian Open this afternoon. After his 4th round win last night, Novak Djokovic refused an interview with the broadcaster Channel 9. Here was his reason.
A few days ago, a famous sports journalist here from Australia who works for a main broadcaster of Australian Open at Channel 9 decided to mock Serbian fans, and he made insulting and offensive comments towards me. So I was hoping he's going to apologize in public, which he hasn't done yet. Neither did the Channel 9. So that's the only reason why I didn't do the interview. It was, of course, not a great feeling for me, and it was quite awkward.
And this was what he was talking about earlier in the week. 9 journalist Tony Jones appeared to mock both the Serbian superstar and his fans on air.
Fans there in full voice. Yeah, the chants are quite extraordinary. Novak, he's overrated. Novak's a has-been. Novak, kick him out. boy, I'm glad they can't hear me.
Let's bring in our reporter now, Rory Campbell, live in Melbourne. Rory, we've just heard from Tony Jones this morning. How did he react?
Well, he says he had actually already apologised to Novak Djokovic through the Tennis Stars camp, and he expects that he will catch up with Novak Djokovic in the coming days to make that apology in person. But didn't they come from everywhere with a hot take on this one, from politicians to talk show hosts to sports stars? Even Elon Musk was talking about this, and Novak Djokovic clearly did want to make an impact with his actions last night. The match was a couple of days after Tony Jones' comments, which were made on Friday, and certainly they've made a real impact since that snub last night. It was a pretty polite snub, really, in the end. Novak grabbed the microphone, thanked the fans for turning out before turning down questions from Jim Courier, and since then the outrage really has grown. We've seen Boris Becker question Tony Jones' role here at the Australian Open, and Serbian fans in particular have really taken offence to this. The Serbian Council of Australia says it's made a complaint to the Human Rights Commission and has called for Jones to be sacked. So overnight that pressure really did ramp up, and this morning Tony Jones addressed those comments and made an apology.
And here the comments were made on the news on the Friday night, which I considered to be banter. I considered it to be humour. I immediately contacted the Djokovic camp and issued an apology to them, so this is 48 hours ago, for any disrespect that Novak felt that I'd caused. And as I stand here now, I stand by that apology to Novak if he felt any disrespect, which quite clearly he does.
It isn't clear at this stage if that apology will be enough for Novak Djokovic to resume his on-court obligations with the host broadcaster in the next round, but there's every chance he might not win the next round. He's up against Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz, who is a formidable opponent, but Djokovic did take part in a post-match news conference last night, so incredibly likely we haven't heard the last of him here at Melbourne Park. Natarsha.
I don't think so. Rory Campbell in Melbourne, thank you. Peter Dutton has caught up in the polls with Anthony Albanese ahead of the federal election. Live to our political editor, Mark Riley now. Mark, the opposition leader is now level with the Prime Minister in a key measure.
A neck-and-neck race, Tash, just before the election. Peter Dutton now equal to Anthony Albanese's preferred Prime Minister, and the coalition leading Labor 51-49 after preferences in this poll. The one rider, though, is that the pollster Freshwater polls for the Liberal Party, but these results are broadly in line with trends in other polls. It shows we're facing a real contest. Anthony Albanese's first-term Labor government seeking re-election against a resurgent and uncompromising opposition under Peter Dutton. It'll be a big ask for the coalition to win the 19 seats it requires for majority, but that it's a close contest at all shows that Peter Dutton's uncompromising, often negative approach to opposition is having a positive impact on the voters, Tash.
And Mark, the leaders are both in New South Wales today, of course, making big announcements. What have they pledged?
Yeah, Anthony Albanese's at the Tomago aluminium smelter north of Newcastle, the biggest single user of electricity in New South Wales. He's announcing $2 billion in incentives for Australia's 4 big smelters to be fully powered by green energy over the next 10 years. He says it's aimed at increasing the direct use of renewables and reducing the need for coal and gas and driving down emissions. Peter Dutton, in his inimitable way, calls it a $2 billion con job. He's claiming it'll drive the aluminium industry out of Australia. He, meanwhile, is promising a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism, pushing for tougher terrorism laws, including mandatory minimum sentences of 6 years for all acts of terrorism, a mandatory 1-year sentence for displaying Nazi symbols publicly, and increasing the maximum for Nazi salutes to 5 years, while defining attacks at synagogues as hate crimes, and that carries 5 to 7 years. Here's Peter Dutton this morning.
If elected as Prime Minister, we will provide the resources, we will provide the legislation, and we will provide the will. We should be standing with people in their hour of need.
Dutton is characterising Anthony Albanese and his government weak on this issue as those anti-Semitic attacks continue around the country. The Prime Minister has met with the New South Wales and Queensland Premiers and the AFP on this, and he's promising his own tough stance. But it's certainly an issue that will play into the election frame over the coming weeks and months, Tash.
Mark Riley, thank you. Overseas now, and US President-elect Donald Trump has just held a victory rally in Washington, D.C. ahead of his official return to power tomorrow. Our correspondent Tim Lester joins us now live from the US Capitol. Tim, Mr. Trump has addressed the crowd. What did he say to his supporters?
Well, plenty to rev them up, Tash. Hello to you. 16 hours now to go before Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States in the rotunda in the Capitol building behind me. Inside, of course, because it is freezing here in Washington. Sub-zero temperatures already and heading south, not north, I can tell you. Today, he did this rally for supporters in what's known as the Capitol Arena here in Washington. Really revving up a crowd delighted to see him, but also giving a sneak preview of his inaugural address planned for tomorrow, saying that he would have an announcement with regard to those he calls the J6 hostages. They're those taken into custody and perhaps still imprisoned in many cases from the January 6th riots 4 years ago. So an announcement expected there. Also beginning his big border campaign on illegal immigrants as well, and announcing too that he has a joint venture plan to save TikTok here in the United States, speaking to his crowd here in DC a short time ago.
What a good feeling. We like winning, don't we? Huh? Thrilled to be back with so many friends, supporters, and true American patriots on the eve of taking back our country. Tomorrow at noon, the curtain closes on 4 long years of American decline. Our new administration will inherit disasters at home and abroad, an economy plagued by inflation and high interest rates, a catastrophic border crisis, a government that cannot care for its citizens in a time of emergency. Look at what's happening in Los Angeles. Look at what's happening in North Carolina. They've treated them so badly, in a planet on the brink of World War III. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But starting tomorrow, I will act with historic speed and strength and fix every single crisis facing our country. We have to do it.
And Tim, we know it is freezing over there at the moment, and the crowd braved the cold temperatures for Donald Trump's victory lap in the Capitol.
They absolutely did. In fact, some we'd spoken to earlier today had been lining up for 10 hours or so from virtually right overnight through freezing conditions, rain, that became snow and sleet as Donald Trump took the stage. So they really did prove to be a pretty hardy lot, but very happy to be there to cheer on Donald Trump.
It's a new day in America, 24 hours left until he is King of America.
My life has been promoting him and talking about him and all the good things that I know are to come, and he's going to knock it out.
It's going to be an interesting 4 years. We've picked a good time to move to the US, I think.
Americans who don't want change too rapidly would be frankly terrified now by what Donald Trump is promising to do in the next day or two. It's going to be very hectic with his executive orders on so many different policy areas. But his supporters here in Washington, D.C., Tash, they're just delighted.
Indeed. Thank you, Tim Lester, joining us there with the latest details from Washington, D.C. And we'll have special coverage of Donald Trump's second inauguration live from 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Our expert panel will bring you every moment as it happens. Still in the US, and as we go to air, TikTok is coming back online across the states after new laws signed by Joe Biden saw it go dark across America. The Chinese-owned app was shut down over concerns Beijing could access the private data of its users. Donald Trump is vowing to save the platform when he signs an executive order tomorrow, giving it a 90-day extension. Its future, though, is far from settled. And we'll discuss this topic with our panel, The Debrief, later this hour. Brooklyn Ross from The Kyle and Jackie O Show and Sean Jay from Mamma Mia will join us after 12:30 this afternoon. Turning to finance now, and joining us now is Matt Bone from ING Bank. Matt, good afternoon. The local market has opened quite positive this morning as traders await the impact of the new US president on international markets.
Good afternoon, Tash. Yeah, you're exactly right. The US market really rallied on Friday to deliver the best week it's seen since the November US election, of course, with 16 hours to go until President-elect Trump comes into power. The local market has really followed that lead early. We're currently up just under half a percentage point to 8,346. It's been materials and energy that's driven the rally this morning. Iron ore hit highs of $104 a tonne overnight in global commodity markets. So BHP, Rio and Fortescue all up in early play. Elsewhere, Star Entertainment Group has continued its volatility. Its stock down 10% as it warned about its liquidity risk. And in the currency markets, we're seeing the Aussie dollar dipped early, but it is currently trading at around 62 US cents. Thanks, Tash.
Matt, thank you. Quick look at the weather details around the country. Now, Brisbane mostly sunny with a top of 30 degrees. Sydney mostly cloudy, heading for 25. Canberra and Melbourne both 31 degrees. Hobart mostly cloudy, 24. The same for Adelaide, 34 degrees. Perth, a possible storm expected late in the afternoon, 42 degrees today. Darwin, fog, then sunny, 34. We'll have the full forecast a little later for you this afternoon. Ahead this hour, tropical cyclone Sean building in intensity, lives and homes under threat. To survive a 50-metre plunge when a car flies off a cliff and onto the beach, see the aftermath. And Patricia by name, putrid by nature. We're watching the corpse flower about to bloom any moment. Back on 7 right after this. Welcome back. As we go to air this afternoon, tropical cyclone Sean is causing havoc in the north of WA. Right now, the system is strengthening as it tracks west, bumped up to a Category 3. Communities are on alert for winds of more than 140 kilometres per hour. While it's expected to stay offshore, it is causing flooding in some towns. 2 teenagers have died at a popular swimming spot on the Sunshine Coast. It's understood a 17-year-old girl drowned after plunging from a waterfall at Wappa Falls. When she did not resurface, a 17-year-old then jumped in to try and save her, but he then went missing. Rescue teams and divers located the bodies yesterday. An urgent search is back on this afternoon for a Brisbane pastor whose ute was washed away by floodwaters in the New South Wales Northern Rivers. The damaged Toyota Hilux was found around 400 metres downstream from a causeway which he'd attempted to cross in extreme weather conditions on Saturday. The 53-year-old had been attending a local wedding earlier that day. 2/3 of public health psychiatrists are preparing to walk off the job in New South Wales, locked in a bitter pay dispute with the New South Wales government. The Premier has offered a 10.5% increase and is standing firm on that figure, rejecting an immediate 25% pay increase. Chris Minns comparing the increase to the equivalent of a first-year nurse's salary. 2 people are lucky to be alive this afternoon after a car plunged over a cliff in Adelaide South. The Holden fell around 50 metres, landing on a beach below. The driver and passenger, a woman and man, both aged 30, were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police are investigating whether speed may have been a factor in the crash. We're waiting with bated breath this afternoon for a rare corpse flower to finally bloom at any moment at the Royal Botanic Gardens of Sydney. Here is a live stream of it right now. The endangered flower, named Patricia after her rotting flesh stench, is drawing massive crowds both in person and online. And Chief Scientist Professor Brett Summerall joins us now. Brett, why is this flower so special?
Well, it's quite rare in the wild in West Sumatra. It's a spectacular plant, as you can see behind me. You know, huge flower, huge floral infrastructure. It's one of those plant species that when it opens, it produces the smell of rotting flesh to attract insects and other beetles to pollinate it. What's not to love about it? It's just a spectacular plant.
We know about the rotten smell, but how bad is that smell once it actually blooms?
I liken it to the smell of having a dead possum in your roof, but other people have said it's a bit like, you know, vomity type smells, okay. You know, all sorts of, everything that you can possibly think of that's bad.
Now, we were hearing reports it was set to bloom over the weekend. How's it travelling right now?
Well, it's a little bit slow. I think didn't like the last few days, which were a bit cool and a bit cold, but there's still lots of people coming in to look at it, and we expect probably sometime in the next 48 hours that it will start to open up, emit that smell, and really start to attract huge crowds of people who are really fascinated by this plant.
Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a corpse flower bloom at the Royal Botanic Gardens. It happens about every decade, is that right?
Yeah, it takes a long time for the plant to store enough energy in a corm, a big tuber-like structure that sits underground, and so it's absorbing nutrients, puts up a leaf every now and then to absorb nutrients. Takes a lot of energy to produce a structure this big, so it does take that sort of 10-year period for a flower to be produced.
Now, I'm hearing it was, as we mentioned earlier, expected to bloom over the weekend. What's your prediction, if you can possibly give us any insight into when it may bloom?
It's running on its own timetable a little bit, but I think the way it's starting to swell and look, I think probably either tonight or tomorrow night. So I'd say Tuesday, Wednesday are probably the most likely days. But if it decides to hang around a bit longer, then it will be what it will be.
Absolutely, runs to its own timetable. Professor Brett Summerell, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, coming up on 7, our entertainment report, including Tyra Banks on her secret double life down under and the loss of her LA home to those ferocious wildfires. Then in sport, the stars aligned to complete their miraculous finals run. And Alex de Minaur seeking a tournament first, but a dangerous American stands in his way. Stay with us. Big news for believers this afternoon. Justin Bieber is making a music comeback. Lucy McLeod is here with the latest entertainment news. Lucy, he's releasing a new album.
Sure is, Tash. After years out of the spotlight, it seems Justin Bieber is ready to return to music. But not only a new album can we expect, maybe even a tour this year too. News of his comeback circulated after he teased a new track on social media. It comes after he and his wife Hayley welcomed their very first child, Jack Blues, in August last year. And while there's been no official confirmation from Bieber or his team, it certainly has his fans in a frenzy. And someone who does as well is Rihanna, who's also sparking new music speculations. The 36-year-old was snapped walking into a recording studio at 2:30 in the morning in New York at the weekend. And if it means what we think it does, well, we could see her very first album in almost a decade. Tyra Banks has revealed she was in Australia when she found out her home had been destroyed in the LA fires.
We were at a friend's house here and we were celebrating and just having fun, and I just kept checking my phone. I asked my partner, I was like, I'm seeing something here. What do you think? And he said, and I just pulled it together and just didn't say anything to my friends and just stayed in that moment, and then we went home and we cried.
The next top model host has been living a double life down under, secretly slinking around Sydney for over a year. She's been building her latest business empire, an ice cream shop, Smize and Dream, which is set to open in Darling Harbour in March.
The people, you guys are some nice people. Just very, very sweet. Coffee, oh my God, child.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. The coffee. I've had some of the smoothest coffee ever in my life.
Oh.
Hollywood star Paul Rudd has been spotted on the Gold Coast, where he's filming a brand new movie. In between takes, he's been playing frisbee and soaking up some sun with his co-stars. The 55-year-old is currently shooting a comedic reboot of the horror film Anaconda alongside Jack Black, and that all comes out in December. And after 40 years in showbiz, Guy Pearce is reaching a new career peak. The Aussie actor scored a Golden Globe nomination for his role in The Brutalist and is set for his very first Oscar nomination. The biggest news, though, I think, is that he has revealed we might see him star again in a Priscilla Queen of the Desert sequel.
We're in talks. I think if we come up with something that feels valid and feels reasonable and is a justifiable step from the original, then sure, you know, people want to see where these characters are now.
And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has had quite the makeover. The star posted this video of his daughters giving their dad a little touch-up before his gym session.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And Tash, I cannot wait for that makeup tutorial to drop.
Absolutely, Lucy. Thank you. Time for sport now with Liam Tapper. Liam, the Big Bash finals cannot wait. They're set.
Oh, they certainly are, Tash. It has been a long time in the making, but the Melbourne Stars completed their miraculous turnaround with a 40-run victory over the Hobart Hurricanes. Needing to beat the ladder-leading Hurricanes to qualify for the finals, the hosts posted 5 for 219 after Glenn Maxwell's 76 not out and Bo Webster's 51. Opener Mitch Owen and captain Nathan Ellis were the only Hurricanes to fire in reply to the Stars' hefty total. Mark Steckity took 4 wickets as the Canes were all out for 179. The Stars will visit the Sydney Thunder for the knockout this Wednesday night. The Women's Ashes move on to the T20s, leading the multi-format series 3 games and 6 points to 0. Australia can retain the trophy at the SCG tonight. They say they've learned vital lessons from surrendering their World Cup title.
We've had a really positive start. We're going to take it, but we're keen to keep winning games, and it doesn't seem to slow us down at all. I back all of our teams to do the job.
England are desperately searching for a way to halt Ash Gardner's impact with the bat, ball and in the field. Alex de Minaur will chase a maiden Australian Open quarterfinals berth when he takes on Alex Mickelson tonight. It's the Demons' 4th consecutive 4th-round appearance at the Oz Open, but the dangerous American stands in his way.
He's a dangerous opponent with a lot of confidence right now, and he's taken some big scalps this week, so ready for a battle.
Heavyweights Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic will meet tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Ange Postecoglou's future in the Premier League could be in danger following Tottenham's 3-2 defeat to Everton. The defeat is Tottenham's 12th league defeat this season, leaving Spurs just 4 points above Everton in 15th.
Keep fighting, and certainly I haven't lost belief and I haven't lost any determination to turn it around.
Manchester City thumped Ipswich 6-0 to move back inside the top 4. Nottingham Forest extended their unbeaten run to 9 games with a 3-2 win over Southampton, while Brighton scored 2 goals in the second half to defeat Manchester United 3-1. Adelaide 36ers captain DJ Vasiljevic hit 7 first-quarter three-pointers in their 99-75 win over the Cairns Taipans. DJ shot the lights out in the opening 8 minutes, but only added another 11 points to finish the match with 10 threes and 32 points.
From DJ, no way!
Wow, Kendrick Davis had 27 points and 9 assists as Adelaide hone in on the top 6. And Tash, we are all hoping that the Demon can win tonight.
Yeah, fingers and toes crossed. Liam, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. The debrief is next. Fair game or storm in a teacup. We'll discuss the latest Oz Open controversy with a boycott from Novak Djokovic. Plus, new polls put our politicians neck and neck. We'll ask if the election is Peter Dutton's to lose. And classic films like Crocodile Dundee now at risk of edits. The nation's censor asks for new powers. Our panellists join us next. Well, it's time for the debrief, where we delve into the day's headlines and top stories with newsmakers from across the country. Joining us today is Brooklyn Ross, newsreader with the Carl and Jackie O Show, and Sean Jay from Mamamia. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, if we can start with the Novak Djokovic bombshell boycott, of course, the post-match interviews at the Oz Open. Now, the Serbian was insulted by Mr Jones's comments, and as a result, he has boycotted any interviews post the game. Brooklyn, for you, do you think Tony's apology was enough? Do you think it was offensive?
Oh, I don't think it was offensive at all, really. When you saw Tony Jones on the news kind of giving it to the people behind, I can understand why Novak may have been insulted by that, but us as Aussies, we know that there was nothing to that. It really was just a joke. Tony puts his foot in it a lot. He's done it again. But I hope Novak accepts the apology that, there really wasn't anything mean. He didn't really think he's a has-been. I don't think. It didn't look like it.
Sian, for you, Novak alleges also it was very offensive to the Serbian fans. Do you think there's a valid point, or do you think it's a storm in a teacup with this?
I think what Brooklyn said about, Aussies say, oh, it's a joke and all that, but I think the audience reception this time was maybe he'd pushed it a bit too far. I think people weren't impressed with it and weren't impressed with his apology either, so he might have to work a little bit harder for that.
Do you think people may be siding a bit with Novak, though? He was very controversial during the COVID crisis, that maybe he does now have a legion of fans. Sian, for you, do you think that?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely much more support for him around this time than there was last time, and people seem to be really rallying behind him with this one.
And Tony Jones being, quite unpopular at times himself is probably helping Novak in this fight, I would say.
Absolutely.
Now, there was international meltdown yesterday when TikTok went to dark in the US and implications. What does this mean for the US? What does this mean for us? Overnight, then, Trump, over the last couple of hours, Mr Trump comes and apparently saves TikTok. Smart move, right, Brooklyn?
Well, yeah, this 90-day, little period to extend it was always there in the legislation. So Trump's using that. He's not really doing anything too crazy at this point. And he's still saying, hey, if you want to sell, then we'll look at selling. But the Chinese owners of TikTok are very adamant that they're not going to sell. So I don't really know where it goes from here. This law in the US was backed by both sides of politics. I don't know where it goes here. It's just 90 days to reach the same conclusion, I'd say.
There are some politicians, even here in Australia, Sian, that aren't allowed to have TikTok because of concerns about data being compromised. Surely that highlights there is an issue moving forward. Is Mr Trump just playing to the popular vote, one may argue?
I think maybe he is playing to the popular vote because what we've seen is that the users weren't very worried about this breach because they've all just jumped over to RedNote, which is another Chinese-owned app. So I think he's playing on that a little bit, and such a massive move in such a pivotal time as well. So it'll be interesting, but he seems to be the man today bringing that back for them.
Talking about a pivotal time, we've got the upcoming election. There hasn't been an official date set by Mr Albanese as yet, but it seems election campaigning for the federal election has already started. New polling out today. We know the polls can be wrong, showing now that Mr Albanese is neck and neck with Peter Dutton. Do you think this election is Peter Dutton's to lose because of the cost of living crisis, Brooklyn?
I'm amazed at how well Peter Dutton has done up to this point. I don't think anyone was really giving him much of a chance when he took over the Liberal leadership. He's doing it, and he's being quite restrained in everything he's saying. Labor's attacking him by saying you haven't really got that many policies to judge on at this point. I guess we're going to see that in the election campaign, hopefully. He's just staying out of trouble, really, and it seems to be working for him.
Sian, you look internationally, it's almost not voting for, more of a conservative leader. It's almost a protest vote. So one may argue that with cost of living crisis, especially in Australia at the moment, it would be a protest vote to vote Mr Albanese out. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think what we see, our audience, there's a lot of confusion, and I think subjects such as climate change have been on the back burner, and cost of living crisis with these new social issues that are coming up. So I think that there's a bit of a grey area, and I think people want a little bit more information, and these leaders should be talking on more of a macro level to reach their audiences.
And finally, this is a bit of a bombshell too. Your favourite afternoon movies, your favourite movies could be censored. There's a push now, especially for certain classification board wants new powers to censor or reclassify content. It says no longer fits with community standards. Is this wiping out history? Sian, do you think?
I think this is an interesting topic because I think a lot of people were uproared when Mary Poppins, a popular children's movie, was pushed back, and I sort of look at our audience going, well, how far are they going to take this? Where's the line that we stop by pushing back things that we've grown up with?
Brooklyn, for you, is it a matter of putting a warning on the start of a movie rather than editing pieces out? Because surely that's rewriting history.
Yeah, put a warning on there. I'm fine with that. I'm amazed the classification board even exists. Like in the world of the internet, who knew they even still were relevant? If anything, there's probably more old movies that can be reclassified down as not so offensive now. You know, we've gotten used to a lot more when it comes to horror films and stuff like that. So I think this woke uproar is a bit of a storm in a teacup here.
Some of the examples I'll share with you, you know, cracking down on Crocodile Dundee and Gone with the Wind. I mean, when you do watch some of these movies, they don't age well. But as I mentioned before, is it about just putting a warning on it because you don't want to rewrite history?
Yeah, I mean, cutting things out like that it's there. If we should be able to see it for if it was bad and we have changed. Like, let's see what it used to be and what we've learnt and go from there. You shouldn't be editing stuff out, I don't think.
For you, Sean?
I think that, you know, things like Mary Poppins and Crocodile Dundee are the least of their worries when we have a look at sort of some of the movies and television shows that children can get their hands on.
So much to chat about this afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tash.
Much appreciated. Well, we asked for your say on the Djokovic drama on our social media pages. Let's bring in Lucy McLeod now. Lucy, what's everyone saying about this?
Well, Tash, he's copped a lot of heat, this Tony Jones guy. You know, if you really stepped over the line when you've got most of Australia backing the Joker and against you. I'm live on TikTok right now, and you can see the comments are really rolling in if you're on the socials. There's not a lot of sympathy for this journo. In a social media poll, the question was, do you think that Djokovic deserved an apology? And we had no shortage of responses. I've pulled some comments from online. Dwayne Harmer says, Tony Jones crossed the line. What type of journo does that? Some calling it embarrassing and that it only adds to the belief that booing is acceptable. People like Vicky say, why even question it? Just do it. It's a simple apology. And then on the other hand, some users just reckon that the Joker should take a joke. Kim Brand says that it's all banter and it's what Australia does best, and some are just outright sick of news on Djokovic that has nothing to do with tennis. Like Jeff Hawkins here, his comment says he's always in the news, nothing to do with his tennis. And of course, Tony Jones has since apologised, but my favourite comment so far is this one here that says Channel 9 should just lose broadcasting rights to 7. So what do you reckon, Tash? Is it time we take over the tennis?
No bias there. Lucy, thank you. Well, if you'd like to have your say at midday, you can go to our social media pages every morning at 9 a.m. Also, a back-to-school property trend, parents buying up prime real estate near high-performing government schools. The most sought-after suburbs in your city right after this break. Mums and dads are finding a new way to secure a top-tier education for their children without the private school price tag. Parents are setting their sights on prime real estate, buying in sought-after government school zones. National property editor with view.com.au, Emily Rayner, joins us now live to talk us through this. Emily, explain us these catchments. Exactly what are they and what are they doing to property prices in those suburbs and around those areas?
Thanks, Tash. School zones and catchments are the boundaries that determine which students a school can accept based on where they live. If you live within the zone, your child's normally guaranteed a spot, but there can be exceptions. It's important to remember that these zones can be really competitive and lots of out-of-zone applications get rejected, so living in the zone can be a massive advantage. School zones can significantly impact property prices and rentals, and we're really seeing that as homes within sought-after school catchment areas often attracting loads of demand.
So what examples do you have for us?
Well, probably some of the best examples are Willoughby Girls High School, which consistently ranks as one of the best schools in the country. Chatswood High also shares similar catchments and it's co-educational. This home that we're showing here has an asking price of $1.75 million and median rents are $1,243 per week. Over in Victoria, Baldwin High is a perennial favourite for families searching for that real academic excellence. Homes in the Baldwin catchment come at a big premium. This one is currently listed for sale between $1,400,000 and $1,500,000 and the median rental is $850 per week. Then over in Brisbane, Brisbane State High School is the crown jewel of public education. It's in a central location in South Brisbane and it makes it a really hot ticket for families. This Queenslander in Woolloongabba, where the sale prices hit the $2 million mark, highlights the premium families are really willing to pay to secure a spot. Median rents in this catchment area start at $750. Then over in Perth, we've got Applecross Senior High School in Ardros, which really stands out. This is a family home that's currently listed with a price guide above $1 million. It's within the Applecross catchment zone, where median weekly rents are $921. And then finally in Adelaide, Glenunga International School is renowned for its academic excellence and its IB program. This home is currently listed at between $730,000 and $780,000, and it's a prime example of the opportunities available for families looking to secure a spot in the Glenunga catchment at an affordable price.
And what are your tips for parents?
Well, with families scrambling to buy or rent in homes in coveted catchment areas, there's a couple of top tips that we can give you to get in the school zone. Really, it's about getting in early. You need to start your search now, well before enrolment season. The option of renting versus buying is also a really great opportunity within the school zone, but you need to be aware that some zones require proof of long-term residence. You need to check the boundaries of school zones, and they can change. So you need to confirm the current boundaries within the school and check out view.com school catchment to do that. And be prepared to pay a premium. It's no secret that homes in sought-after zones cost more, so plan for your budget accordingly. Consider long-term value homes in good school zones because they tend to hold their value better and they sell faster, making them a really smart investment.
Emily Rayner from view.com.au, thanks so much. We'll recap our headlines in just a moment, plus your full weather detail forecast with Goody Sperling.
It's looking warm and sunny across much of the country, but a tropical cyclone is impacting parts of WA. The details soon.
Recapping this afternoon's top stories, Hamas has released 3 female hostages to Israel. The women were held captive for 471 days. This morning they were handed over to the Red Cross in exchange for the release of 90 Palestinian prisoners. Novak Djokovic is boycotting interviews with the Australian Open broadcaster. Last week, 9 journalists appeared to mock both the Serbian superstar and his fans on air. The Channel 9 presenter has apologised this morning. The federal election race is heating up. Peter Dutton is equal to Anthony Albanese as our preferred Prime Minister, with the coalition leading Labor 51-49 after preferences. US President-elect Donald Trump has thanked his supporters at a major victory rally in Washington, D.C. Crowds turning out to celebrate ahead of tomorrow's official transition of power, with performances from Kid Rock and the Village People. And TikTok has come back online across the US after new laws signed by Joe Biden saw it go dark across America. Donald Trump is vowing to save the platform when he signs an executive order tomorrow, giving it a 90-day extension. Now let's take a look at the latest weather details with Goody Sperling. Hi, Goody.
Good afternoon, Tash. It's a bit of a mixed bag across the country today. A high is driving fine and sunny conditions across southern and eastern parts of the country, while Tropical Cyclone Sean is impacting northwest WA. That Category 3 system is bringing destructive wind gusts and widespread heavy rain to coastal communities. Falls of up to 100 millimetres are possible in Onslow and Exmouth, with a number of warnings current. In Perth today, a thunderstorm's possible this afternoon, heading for a scorching top of 44 degrees there. Partly cloudy and 34 for Adelaide, 24 and cloudy in Hobart, 31's the top for Melbourne, and in Canberra too, 25 the top for Sydney, 30 for Brisbane. And looking ahead, it's staying hot and breezy tomorrow, mostly sunny and 32 there, reaching 35 on Wednesday and Thursday. Sydney, 27's the top tomorrow, then warming up to 32 before a mild change on Thursday. Melbourne, sunny and 29 degrees tomorrow before a mild change as well, dropping the temperature back down into the low 20s. Hobart, a late showers possible, just 19's the top on Wednesday, 18 degrees for Thursday. In Adelaide, sunny with a top of 30 tomorrow, reaching 28 degrees on Wednesday. Perth staying very hot, 39, then a top of 38 Wednesday, creeping towards 40 again on Thursday. Darwin, 33 degrees and showers, and we'll have a closer look at what's happening in each state later this afternoon. Tash.
Goody, thank you. And that's 7's national news at noon for this Monday. We'll have updates for you throughout the day before our next bulletin at 4 p.m. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great day.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want every minute of every day, including breaking news alerts. Download the 7 News